This one's about X-Men movies. And I had two big ol' friggin' nerds on here, including Brett White from Decider and the videographer of Pizza Rat, Matt Little. Two very, very funny comedians who their comic book knowledge surpasses my own. And yet they're both married. You know, steal your heart, nerds. There's someone out there for you. Also, fun fact about this episode, you hear me make a prediction about the TV show Legion and get it way wrong. And I was so confident. Ha ha! Oh, the follies of our past. Enjoy!
Welcome to Don't Mind If I Don't. I'm your host, Aaron Gold. This is a show where I don't like things, and fans and experts come on and convince me why I am wrong. And today, we are doing the X-Men movie franchise thing. I would have just said X-Men movies, but now we've got Legion as a show. And who better to convert me to just eating everything Fox dishes out than this reunion of the hosts from Matt and Brett Love Comics. First of all, comicbookresources.com assistant editor and an X-Men aficionado, Brett White.
Hi, that's me.
It is. I checked.
Yeah, I have an X-Men wallet, I'm wearing X-Men shoes, and I have an X-Men pin on my jacket.
Yeah, that was the first. You've got like the 90s logo
and
X-Men pin.
No
on
idea
your
where I
jacket.
got it. I think it just came to me.
That's the start of at least 3 X-Men storylines.
Yeah.
This
It was a gift
item
from the
came to
future.
me. Yeah. Well, before you go and prevent whatever assassination you're going to have to, let me introduce our other guest, comedian, rabid comic book reader, and the mastermind behind the viral sensation Pizza Rat, Matt Little.
Hey, hello.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, I'm wearing Pizza Rat shoes. I have a Pizza Rat wallet.
The Pizza Rat Empire.
Yeah. Oh, man, I feel just like Cookie Lion.
Oh, I'm immediately.
Empire.
I went to a Steven Universe reference.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
for
yeah.
Cookie Cat, but no, that's a more
Ooh.
relevant one. That's Empire.
Yeah, two very different characters.
Actually, so everything that comes through this podcast gets rated on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being total ambivalence, 10 being blood-curdling hatred.
So you can only ever be, the best emotion you can ever have is totally ambivalent.
Or it just will go off the scale. It's happened
okay.
a couple times before.
Okay.
Yeah, like people have gotten me to realize I liked things I didn't think I did.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but, try to keep it pessimistic around here. And in that
Keeping it
spirit,
pess.
the X-Men film franchise clocks in at a 5.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
Because it's fine. Like, I feel like it's like a C+ to B- at best, but
At
it's like
best. Ooh, okay.
so close to being what I want it to be, and it just keeps missing that. It's like an itch I just can't scratch.
What is it that you are looking for when you sit down and you watch an X-Men movie?
Satisfaction.
Okay. What is it that would like satisfy you as an X-Men fan? Because you like the comics.
I do.
Yeah.
Actually, the comic book that got me into comics was a buddy of mine, friend of the show, Mike Serpi, handed me a Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men.
Okay, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And that, I was hooked after that.
That's the best.
That
That's
is
one
the
of
best X-Men.
Yeah.
To me, the best is Chris Claremont, Paul Smith's run, specifically 168 to 176, which has John Romita Jr. in at the end of it.
Ooh.
From
And
the
this is
ashes.
before Claremont went crazy.
Well, no, like Claremont's original 16-year run is the Bible. I mean, like it is what.
This is Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, it's Dark Phoenix, the Australia era. I mean, like it's everything from like Phoenix Saga to the Muir Island Saga. Like it's everything in there. And I mean, when you read Grant Morrison's run, he's just ripping off Claremont. And even when you read Joss Whedon's run, he's also just like doing Claremont.
He's paying homage.
I mean, yes,
Whedon
yes,
gets a
yes.
pass forever. Why do you guys like the X-Men movies? Because these storylines in the comics, they're iconic. And the movies keep on almost getting it right and then fucking it. So why do you guys like the X-Men movies?
For me, the X-Men movie is all context-based more than quality-based in a way, just because I have loved the X-Men since I was in 3rd grade and the 90s cartoon came on. I remember watching Night of the Sentinels when it first aired and being like, what is this? And then that's what got me really into comics is the X-Men. So like they're my favorite thing outside of like Star Wars. Like it's like these are the juggernauts of my life.
Was that pun intended?
Wait,
that was really good.
Juggernaut's just a good word. And
Yes.
Yeah.
It happens that Professor X's stepbrother is that villain.
Yeah.
So when the movies came out, like I was in the throes of X-Men fandom. Well, okay, let's be honest here. The late 90s were a very, very bad time. Alan Davis is a great creator, but when he came back to the books in the late 90s, it was a mess.
Oh, man. Well, he was just kind of the mouthpiece of the editors. I mean, they were basically
Well, no, yeah, Terry Cavanaugh, who was an editor, was also the co-writer of those books.
Yeah.
So the movie came out at a time when I was actually a little bit dipping out.
We're talking about the first X-Men movie.
In 2000. I was a sophomore in... This is 2000. Yeah, I was a sophomore in high school. But that movie, like... It's all about context. And like at that point, superheroes were not movies. There were the Blade movies, and Blade isn't a superhero. Like it's a comic book character. The movie's a good movie, but he's not a spandex-wearing superhero.
He's a leather-wearing superhero.
Yeah. And so when they made the X-Men leather-wearing superheroes, I remember I was on like the AOL message boards being very upset of like, I want them to wear the costumes and all that stuff. But like, it was like being in the desert and then going and seeing an X-Men movie and it not being Batman and Robin and it not being Batman Forever. And that first movie, like I dressed up, me and my friends dressed up for the midnight showing. I went to a midnight showing for it. And I remember calling the movie theater and being like, are you guys going to do a midnight showing? And they're like, what are you talking about? Because no one did midnight showings at that point.
They didn't do midnight showings. I actually did get to see a midnight showing of it. I just realized that as you said that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did too. I talked them into doing it, I guess.
But at that time, and especially, I don't even think Fox expected it to be.
No,
I think they thought that it was just because they pushed. It was
like in mid-July,
Yes.
and it was not really like that high of a budget, and they weren't even expecting it to open at number one because it was a weird movie.
They were, and pardon this pun, astonished that it.
I feel like this is going to happen a lot.
Yeah.
This
We
episode.
have an uncanny knack for doing that. So I think that everyone involved except us nerds were not expecting this to go to number one, and then it did, and it was also that it felt like the first time that since I'd argue the first Batman movie, that a studio had like sort of respected the source material.
Yeah, and let's be honest, that first Batman movie didn't really respect
It got the tone, like it did tone
It got
really well.
some of it,
And and I mean, I still love that movie because it is bonkers. But we're talking about X-Men. So
Yeah,
it's like
and
I go up, but like I love that. I wrote an article about this recently about how the X-Men movies, when we look at like the context of when it came out, they had to walk this really seemingly impossible tightrope of we're gonna do superheroes, and we're actually gonna do superheroes. Like they're gonna wear costumes and have code names and save the world. But on the other hand, like we got to put them in black leather, and we have to like kind of make fun of the code names just because we weren't used to that. And you see, like X-Men started this thing where we're now at like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
and like the Marvel
we get to have
movies.
Talking Tree.
And
I think we're at like fourth wave. Like this is probably, I would argue, start of second wave. X-Men start of second wave.
And to me, like that's one of the reasons why I do really kind of like X-Men Apocalypse a lot is it's the Fox franchise finally catching up with the Marvel movies in a way and being like, we're gonna be insane.
Now I will say this because I watched both X-Men Apocalypse because I had heard nothing but complaints about X-Men Apocalypse, and I hadn't watched it because of those reviews. This week I watched it in preparation for this recording. Mm-hmm. I liked it. Like, I mean, it was fun.
Yeah,
it wasn't a great movie, but it was fun.
It is the most. I think that X2 and see the thing that I actually do like a lot of them. I think X2 really nails what a good structured comic book arc should be. Mm-hmm. And then I think X-Men Apocalypse is a great adaptation of what an insane 90s X-Men crossover feels like.
Culminating with everybody beating the bad guy by, all right, lasers all at once, go.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's so fundamentally X-Men.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I love that.
Let me ask you guys this, because we're not talking about the first X-Men movie. We're talking about this as a franchise. So, 2 questions for each of you.
Okay.
Who is your favorite X-Man, whether they've been in the movies or not, and what is your favorite X-Men movie?
Okay. So my favorite X-Man is
Don't say Zorn.
no. Oh God, no.
God.
Which one?
It's like original Magneto Zorn.
I imagine the one
terrorist Cyclops.
Oh
great.
yeah, with
the
the
most
X
recent
mask?
with the big red X on his
Yeah.
face.
Love
I
that.
think that
Get
may
shit
be,
done, Cyclops.
Yes,
Yeah.
get shit done,
Che
Cyclops.
Guevara Cyclops.
Yes, he is. He's a character whose back is against the wall, facing extinction, and he is so palpably being affected by the weight of the world on his shoulders that he's having panic attacks on page. And like he goes out, he's a great strategist. And he can see a couple steps ahead, but then he goes out in the field and it goes to shit because he freaks out.
And also his
they come
powers
back.
aren't working that well.
Yes. And he comes back and everyone's like, what the hell was that? And he's like, what the hell was that? And like everyone, even he's like, oh, shoot. It just felt like the most three-dimensional, best realized version of this character that had essentially been kind of floating around.
Well, and a natural culmination of decades and decades of expectations
Yeah.
and a different take on it. And it makes total sense. I mean, the first time that I really liked Cyclops was during the Joss Whedon run when he lost his powers. And he's like,
Same
I am just
exact
powerless
thing.
Cyclops with a gun. And I was like, oh, I now understand who this guy is. Once you take away that.
Exactly. That was actually the
Yeah.
moment where I stopped thinking Cyclops was just an asshole and
Yeah.
started going like, oh no, he's the biggest badass on
Yeah.
this team because he has to be. And
Yeah, I
just
lo-
a
and-
master tactician.
And this like master selflessness, especially with this most recent run where he's like, for the good of the mutant race, I don't give a fuck about what people think about me or my legacy or what my friends. I don't give a fuck about having love or friendship as long as it
Saves
is for
my
the
people.
good of the. And it's like the most selfless thing. It's great.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah.
before we get too nerdy out, because like right now I just want to keep going like, what about that time Magneto went to the island and was just like, I came to praise
Yeah.
Caesar. Like, so
So the movie, my favorite movie,
yes.
I think would be Days of Future Past.
Okay.
I love Days of Future Past because it felt like it to me felt like the realization of the tone of what I want from an X-Men movie
Yeah.
at the scale that I would want it. I loved X2 up until then. X2 was it.
Yeah.
But X2 didn't quite have the scale that they weren't afraid to go big with Days of Future Past. I mean that final fight is just pure chaos, right? They're in the
Talking
lawn
about
of
in
the
the
White House.
future or in the
Well, actually, both sides of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It goes crazy on both areas.
Right. And, X2 was great, but it was still just like fist fights,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I will say that fight in Days of Future Past was great. When Blink is written as the biggest badass on your team,
Which she should
because
be.
just
Yeah.
that is good
Yes.
filmmaking.
Yeah.
Just like Portal.
Yeah.
You've taken out your own people because I am that good.
Yeah.
that's great.
And to me, it was what I loved about that movie too is that it was the one. Every other X-Men film ends in a rough place. That's the only one that's ended with hope.
Oh my God! Right. Oh,
Pretty
I
much.
just now remember. Like, I just got punched in the face with how that movie ends, and I was so happy.
Yeah. It's the only, and that's why. That's also why I love Cyclops. That's Cyclops because his arc ends with the most hopeful thing that has ever happened in an X-Men comic book, and like since Chris Claremont left the book, it's a peaceful million mutant march in Washington.
Yeah, that was great.
To demonstrate unity, and I was like, oh my God, that's. Yeah, so both of those things I think are the reasons why those things are currently my favorites.
That's fair. Also, like speaking of the ending of Days of Future Past, you are right. It does just warm your heart. I've never been happier to see Kelsey Grammer.
I know, right?
Brett, your favorite X-Men and movie,
My favorite X-Men is Rogue because I am from the South.
and the end.
There is something just so much. I mean, really, it is because I am from the South, and the more I've lived in New York, the more I am more proud of the things that are right about the South. And I think Rogue is a good representation of what is right about the South, which is like a strong Southern woman who is like sassy for days, but is also like not afraid to get shit done. I love her arc in the comics.
Yeah.
How she goes from she's raised by people who love her, lesbian mothers, which is also a great thing. It's she's a Southern character with like LGBT parents. Love that.
Yeah.
But she goes from like, I'm terrified, please help me. And you really watch her. That first moment in From the Ashes, Uncanny 171, 172, 173. It's 173.
It's always jarring for me to find it. Like I know the point was to have like guests that were nerdier than me, but like I can't reference issues like that.
She joins in 171. They go to Japan in 172. She sacrifices herself to save Wolverine and his Mariko's life in 173. Damn.
Yeah, because they spend the last 3 issues before that
And they
just
hate her.
trashing
Wolverine
her
doesn't
to her
like
face.
her, and all the X-Men gets poisoned, and like that moment is so powerful. And then seeing her grow, like Mike Carey's X-Men Legacy run, I love that she is a leader, and that is defined more by her compassion than her intelligence, because she's not a smart character. Like she's average intelligence, but like she's so emotionally intelligent and but she's also so fucking tough.
Yeah.
Like in Night of the Sentinels, she's at a shopping mall shopping, and then she's like, "Look, and there's a damn Sentinel in here. I'm gonna go punch it in its face," and I love it. So Rogue is one of my main problems of the movies.
Yes.
For sure. And it does hearten me to know that Anna Paquin also knows this and is pissed about it. So my favorite X-Men movie is either X2 or just I don't know if I should go like Renegade and be like the fucking Wolverine and just go off track.
Oh.
Do it.
I don't know. Like
Burn it to the
I
ground.
love
man.
X2 a lot. I love Days of Future Past a lot. There's things about First Class that get really, really right.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point here. No X-Men movie nails it.
Deadpool.
They all just get... Well, actually, that's my favorite X-Men movie because that is the only one that does nail it. But yeah, all the movies, aside from that one, keep on almost getting it.
Right,
It's that itch
100%,
that just
yeah.
never scratched.
And for some reason, for me, I'm not fine with it because this is where I'm like I love a lot of the movies. Like I go to like 8 or 9 on Days of Future Past, X2, and even like the Wolverine is a fucking movie no one
fine.
talks about. The ending of it is bad, but like the way they do Yukio and Mariko, they are better in the movie than they ever were in the comics.
Oh, yeah.
And
100%.
I will
Yeah.
even say I like Hugh Jackman and Famke Janssen, Wolverine and Jean Grey way more than I've ever given a fuck about either of those characters in the comics.
Okay.
That is me.
All right, let's do this. Let me stretch. Okay. First of all, just to say it, my favorite X character of all time is Jamie Madrox, the Multiple Man. I'm wearing his shirt
Wearing
right
the shirt
now.
right now.
I at New York Comic Con most recently, I was cosplaying as Jamie Madrox with the M on my face and everything, and I got to meet Peter David.
He's great.
Oh,
The very first thing Peter David says when he looks at me and goes, "Don't worry, he's not really dead."
Wait, because of the most recent? Wait,
Yeah,
what do you-
but-
he's the most easy character to like,
yeah.
because he's already died once, which when he died in the 90s, I made a scrapbook that I drew myself. Because Multiman
Yeah.
was my favorite character from...
And he's an
until, like, a
obscure
couple
one.
weeks ago.
So if you're listening to this and you don't know much about X-Men, why have you stayed this long? But thank you. You should be
He was
rewarded
played
with
by
information.
He was played by Dr. McSteamy in X-Men The Last Stand.
Oh,
That's right.
let's do it. Because here's my biggest issue with the X-Men movies.
Great pun. So pun trifecta
Oh, God damn it.
finished.
Oh, I didn't even try.
I know, it just happens.
I can't control these powers. That they don't give enough credence or homage to the characters from the comics. They take
Yes.
a lot of the things that you love about them and then completely ignore them. The first time they tried doing Deadpool was an absolute travesty. No one will challenge me on that.
No, yeah.
But Colossus isn't Russian, and that's his whole... that is literally half of his personality. Emma Frost, who is one of the most interesting characters in all of X-Men lore, is regarded to like, a bimbo under heel with no opinions or thoughts. And Jamie Madrox, my favorite. A character who every time his body feels an impact, it creates a duplicate of him that represent different aspects of his personality so they don't always listen to him. That is a brilliant idea for a character. And in X-Men 3, he's just a thief and he's in 2 scenes.
His
and
one line
done.
dialogue is a sly joke, and I was like,
What's
that's
it?
fine.
What was
I
it?
can't remember it because I don't watch X-Men 3 literally ever. But I do remember it. I hated that movie, and at the time I was like, oh, at least he had a joke. in
Yeah.
his one. My main problem with the X-Men movies, which is why I always say I love a lot of the movies, but they're not X-Men movies, but they're movies I love. Because from like a filmmake, like if you divorce it from my love of the X-Men and my love of the characters as they are in the comics, from just a filmmaking thing, is like X2 is great. I had so much fun in Days of Future Past. Like First Class was a blast. But then if I do let this voice in my head of like what I know about these characters and what I know like they could be, I could then get very mad. I've written so many articles on CBR about how the X-Men are about a diverse team, and they are not just about, like, if you went back to the early 90s and was like, we're going to make X-Men movies, and they're all going to be about Wolverine, you'd be like, obviously, and then they're going to be about the old guy in the wheelchair and then his oldest villain friend, and that's all the movies, and that would be like, that's insane. Why would you ever make a franchise built off of that? And they'd be like, well, it's going to work, and then it actually, like, does... It does work because Fassbender and McAvoy are amazing and Stuart McKellen are amazing. It's just shitty that they do focus they do really great jobs with characters that if you love the comics, you don't give a fuck about. You're like, pay that much attention to Storm.
Yes.
Dear God.
Yes. Storm, who is one of the most important comic book characters.
Right.
Like a strong, confident black woman in comic books who is also debatably the most powerful person on your team. Like,
and they never get her right.
They never get her right. They started to in Apocalypse.
Well, I think, I was thinking about this as I was watching X-Men Apocalypse, and I think part of the issue with the X-Men franchises as well is so this kind of, looking at them against the Marvel movies, what the Marvel movies do really well, and this is a production standpoint thing, is that they find people who are at a certain status level in terms of their career that they can come into a movie and they sign contracts ahead of time that seem like they will say like, okay, whatever the money is, like, you're still not going to be like, none of the movies will be beholden to who you are, right? The reason I say that is I think that the X-Men movies only figured that out when casting Apocalypse, where they're getting good actors but lesser knowns to fill out these roles, because they ran into Jennifer Lawrence. You know what I mean? Like, they cast Jennifer Lawrence in First Class.
They quasi-discovered her.
And they were almost a victim of her own success that now, Mystique...
They have to keep...
Mystique is a tertiary but important character in the comics, but not the person that leads the X-Men or trains them. But now she has the savior of the mutant race because she's Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, and that kind of sucks, right?
I mean, it does. It does from a fan standpoint.
Yeah.
It's difficult because we see the potential and we see how much easier it could even be on the screenwriters, producers, and people putting this together. That like these relationships that you're forcing to happen on camera, there are ones that are just as good that already exist that you could literally be lifting and rewriting.
You don't need to like force. That's a scene with Nightcrawler and Mystique and Beast because hey, we're all blue, right, guys?
Oh,
blue.
Man.
It's so
we
funny,
don't
though.
need
It's
that.
so fun
When they have like
Nightcrawler's like, I blew too.
Yeah,
I blew too.
It's really funny.
It's funny, but not a laughing with you way. That's laughing at you while your hand is in
I loved
your
it.
face is your face
I loved it.
tisking. But like, so going back to like why Deadpool was so great. Because it was fought for against adversity, which is very much a metaphor for the X-Men movies. But it's the only ones that got like Deadpool right. It got Colossus right. Did its own thing with a Negasonic Teenage Warhead, but also kind of got it right.
Ooh, little bit of hot goss about Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
Let's hear it.
I learned this from a friend who is a producer in Hollywood. That was supposed to be Cannonball.
Oh yeah.
Oh really?
But they couldn't get him.
But they couldn't get him because they're making a New Mutants movie. So they were like, who else has something? And they thought the name sounded cool.
Yeah, it was just all the names.
Yeah.
Like they gave her kind of cannonball-y powers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad it worked out that way because
her powers in the comics are a little too weird to make work.
Yeah.
Just reality altering, but only in your mind. It doesn't. Yeah,
It's Grant Morrison.
I have a weird.
It's Legion, the show.
Yeah.
The reason I give the X movie such a pass on all this is because what they present me with, while frustrating, admittedly so, I still those little things they give me from the comics.
You sound like you're in an abusive relationship.
Yeah, definitely. So this is what being a hardcore, lifelong X-Men fan is mostly about.
You don't understand when we're alone, she lets me know how much she cares.
Brett has dedicated his life to defending a franchise that hates and fears.
I feel like we should clock in what number on a scale of 0 to 10 you guys are at, because I'm thinking that you guys are going up it. I think my
If
hate
Zero's
is infecting
ambivalence,
you.
then I'm like a -7.
You're that pro it.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I do generally. There are moments in like X2 that still like make me cry, like the ending of X2 where you see like the little phoenix bird. It's like ignoring where it goes. I like looking at things as like the piece of like what artistic intention was, and like you knew what Bryan Singer was trying to do there. It didn't happen, but it's still like that moment is so beautiful where they're all like in that plane. It feels like they're a family. Like it feels like they've been through a lot together. And like Nightcrawler's there, Storm is there, Jean, Cyclops. It's like the X-Men. And there's this silent moment. Like if I remember right, like the sound effects go away and you just see like Storm and Cyclops and them at the controls like mouthing. You can't hear what they're saying, but they're freaking out. You see Jean Grey's face. This is why I love Famke so much in that character. Like you just see the realization of like, I have to do this. Like I'm the one to do this.
Yeah.
And then that's such a powerful adaptation of that original Phoenix moment where like they're in the shuttle and all that stuff happens. But they couldn't go to space because at that time, like, superheroes in space, that makes no sense.
That sounds insane.
Let's wait 12 years for a talking raccoon in a tree.
Yeah. Send a tree into space. I'll buy it.
In their defense, it worked.
Yeah, it totally
they
worked.
were right.
And that is what, like, the moments like that, and even things like First Class, which has the most random and uninteresting assortment of mutants from the comics and totally doesn't get any of their personalities right.
Nor their
But-
powers. I am so fucking pissed at how Darwin died because that
makes no
wouldn't work.
sense.
He
Yeah.
still lived through
That's
them.
me, yeah.
He's Darwin.
Yeah.
His thing is that he lives through it all.
But still, you could always say, he didn't die there. Cool. Like, there you go. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah,
my,
but
that's my, like, no prizing
fuck
it.
you.
Exactly.
Like-
but still, like, when they get all these randos together and they put them in the mansion and Xavier and Magneto start training them and you get this training montage. I remember going into that movie because we were coming off of fucking Last Stand and X-Men Origins Wolverine. And I was like, this movie is going to be garbage. I'm just going to get it out of the way. I remember I went alone on like a Friday morning and I go, no expectations. I sit down and I remember that training montage starts and it is so 60s and swinging and like funny. And I was like, none of these characters are X-Men, but this finally feels like an X-Men movie. And I was like, when they give me that, I'm like, that's good.
I'll say First Class was close. Like it was like it gave me a hope.
Right. Even though they get none of the characters right.
No.
Yeah, that was-
which is still like, it's
Like-
kind of a feat.
It also kind of bothered me, just like Havoc. Pretty straightforward character. Chest laser. Like they just fuck him up on that way too, and that was just like, oh, you were so close, but then
But
you
I'm
just
also,
had to
I don't know. For
give the
some
middle
reason,
finger to my face.
For some reason, I am fine with them taking those liberties. Like Banshee's one of my favorite characters, and they made him a teenager who was an American.
Yeah, not
but
Scottish,
not
which is
at all
his whole
Irish.
thing. Irish.
Jeez.
Sorry.
But I'm still like, I still
Closer
like
than
it.
the movies got.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I do love about the movies, though, too, looking on both sides, I think they do a really good job of getting solid actors in the roles for the most part.
For the most part.
Yes.
Vinnie Jones is Juggernaut. No thanks.
It was fun.
And it also,
it
like-
wasn't
Yeah.
great, but it was fun.
When you watch Mad Men and see January Jones, it's like, oh, she would be great as Emma Frost. And you watch her in First Class, you're like, oh, she's only good at being Betty Draper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And even then,
Oh, boy.
not great. But like, they focus on the wrong things, but it feels like then they cut and then high five each other, like feeling like they're nailing it. It feels like the entire X-Men franchise. In every movie, they're winking at the audience without knowing where the audience is sitting.
Yeah.
Like, right, guy? Oh, you're over there. Oh, okay. Like, that's how it feels to me.
Yeah.
Kelsey Grammer's Beast is great.
Kelsey Grammer is beast. Like,
a
every
great
once in a while,
casting.
they'll nail casting perfectly.
I mean,
Yeah.
they like James Marsden's a great Cyclops.
James Marsden was
he
perfect
just
as Cyclops.
made the mistake
Famke
of
was
taking
great as
a
Jean
role
Grey.
in Superman Returns.
Yes.
They wrote him out of spite.
And I'll say this guy they got for Quicksilver. Quicksilver is the best thing about the X-Men movies in the last several years.
Except
ignoring
that
Deadpool.
character is nothing like his comic book
He's
character.
nothing like
Yeah,
that.
again.
But that's the one time they were just like, their liberties were better than some whiny, arrogant Eastern European kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun 80s Quicksilver. I'm into it.
Yeah.
He keeps having the best scenes in all those movies.
I mean, you can't help it, but I was like, the one thing that would pop back into my head all during Apocalypse. I was like, none of these people look 10 years older.
No,
That's the other thing that I hate but love is the bonker. Like, Alex Summers is a solid 20 years older than Cyclops. Like,
Yeah.
so like the aging makes literally no sense, and it is so. Part of me is like, they know it, and they were just like, "Fuck it, we're not going to do any old age
they were
makeup."
saying, fuck
and
it.
I kind of love that choice. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
for some reason, the more insane the choices they make, endears me.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of insane choices, one thing that I really needed out of X-Men Apocalypse that I didn't think I'd need until I
Yeah.
saw it. Finally, great. We finally see the school destroyed because that is a
Yeah,
that happens
all
every
the
6
time.
months.
Yeah.
Quicksilver saving everyone from the explosion, and then they're all just instantly outside. The fact that none of them went, holy shit, what just happened?
yeah.
What? Oh my God. I wanted to see 3 people throwing up. I want to see two people crying without knowing why.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we got people going like, fucking Wednesday.
Yeah.
Like,
But then that makes me wonder, like, man, what else happens to the Xavier School where they're like, yeah, man, fucking Wednesday.
I know, seriously.
We were all implanted with brood eggs last week.
does this mean I don't have to do my geography homework? Like, that's.
That's why I don't want the franchise to stop with X-Men Apocalypse, because they finally, like, at the end of the movie, get to a point where, like, this is a team I want to see.
Yeah.
Because, like, they're not, like, Nightcrawler is amazing. Sophie Turner's Jean Grey is amazing. I think that I thought she was.
think she's good. I'm waiting to see more.
I love the entire new cast so much.
Yeah.
And I am so happy that so many of those other actors' 3-film contract is up. So they might have to do something else.
The other thing, too, and I want to point this out because I don't think we've mentioned this yet. Brett did a re-edit of X-Men Apocalypse, which I think, and I'm not just saying this because you're
I'm
my
right
friend.
here.
Yeah, I think it's a better edit than the actual movie. I think that it makes it go faster, and I think it makes it
It is
more
a
of
half hour shorter.
character bonding film.
I watched the edit right before I came here. I watched it, took a 15-minute nap, and then came here. I think a lot of it flowed a lot better. You did cut 2 scenes that I really did like, though.
It cannot be the Magneto is destroying Auschwitz scene.
I didn't like that he destroyed Auschwitz, but I thought it was
Dear
important
God.
not because of Magneto, but because you finally get to understand Apocalypse and where he's coming from, not just blanket villain want to destroy the world. You get insight into who Apocalypse is, and you get that he cares about his followers as much as he physically can, as long as you are alive and a good warrior and you're strong. I care about you. And that comes across as genuine in that scene. I like that scene. I also liked just in the first scene that you had cut where his original apostles are around him.
Yeah.
Like I like them using their powers, and then one of them could just get crushed by a rock.
Oh,
like
yeah,
that's kind of fun.
Because I start off, I cut out the entire ancient Egypt.
Yeah,
it's so unnecessary.
Because my point with that movie, I loved X-Men Apocalypse in a lot of ways. I like my head it more because I made it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I think the focus should be on the new X-Men.
Agreed.
You cast all these people. And the thing is, like, they knew that at the start because they shot so much more footage with these new kids. That was all so fantastic.
That mall
and,
scene,
the mall scene
scene's
is
phenomenal.
so much fun. And that's like what I've always wanted from X-Men. Because to me, Chris Claremont's X-Men, so much of it is them just hanging out.
Yeah.
And them just relating to each other and like goofing, going to the mall. They go to the mall a lot. It's the first time you meet them in the cartoon.
That's also the best part of Avengers Age of Ultron.
Yeah, is
where
them
you just see the
hanging out.
Avengers hanging out.
Yes.
'Cause, like,
and
when you
like
cast-
fucking around with Thor's hammer.
You
Like, that's
cast
the best.
actors that are charismatic actors in roles they like, which is what all the Marvel movies are.
Yeah.
And what I feel like they've finally done with the X-Men movies. But then again, like when they were doing Days of Future Past and announcing like Famke's coming back, Halle Berry's coming back. And they didn't announce Famke because that was a surprise. But when they announced everyone else, I started being like, I love these guys. Like, I miss them. And then when you see that in montage of Days of Future Past of like, here's how it went right, I'm like, that's what I've always wanted.
That brings up
So
another
great.
question I have about these X-Men things that is a big sticking point, so much so that when I refer to my notes, it's the only one in all caps.
Oh, wow. Here we go.
It's figure out the damn timeline. What is happening in the time? So did those first 3 movies never happen now?
No.
What are we doing?
No, and I'm fine with that.
So they just didn't happen.
Because
so
or they happen
by the
differently.
end of Days of Future Past, even though we get that lovely ending, it doesn't matter.
Well, it takes place in a parallel universe.
So we're talking parallel universe.
Which is,
Yes.
guys,
Okay.
and in some ways, this is what the X-Men are all about.
Yeah.
Is like all of a sudden like
Convoluted
sweeping,
timelines.
convoluted timelines. I'm like, okay, do we need to talk about Cable's coming up? I really hope they do. They're doing
It's
Cable.
Zorn incarnate. How confusing the whole Zorn
I'm
storyline
glad
was.
that the
Oh,
Deadpool
man.
team is doing Cable because
Yeah.
I actually think they might just do Cable and they might
Yes.
just be like, yeah, he is Cyclops' son from a future. Like they might
Yeah.
just go all in, and I'm like, that'd be great.
yeah, and then Deadpool will call it out for being ridiculous. We'll all be fine,
that'd
and
be
then we
great.
can move on with the movie.
Yes.
That's the only way to do Cable because for those of you that don't know Cable, close your eyes for 1 second. Let's take you on a journey.
Close your
Close your eye. Picture a buff 70-year-old man
Yeah.
with a gray hair crew cut. One of his eyes is glowing. Doesn't matter why. He's got kind of psychic powers,
he's-
bionic arm. He's from the future. He's Cyclops' future baby.
He's real good with guns.
He's got so many guns.
Yeah.
And
Also
knives.
kind of a cult
Knives.
leader.
Yes.
The
He was
end.
a- he was a
Oh, but
yeah.
he's a good guy. And
Yeah.
Deadpool's best
Honestly,
friend.
like Cable is summed up by his real name is Nathan Christopher Charles Summers Dayspring Ascani's son. Like,
Yes.
What?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's his full name.
but also like honestly, his actual birth name was like
His
Nathan
birth- yeah.
Nathan Christopher Charles Summers. He's
just-
got a lot of name going on.
we have sent the host away from the show. We have driven
Anyway,
him
welcome
from
Matt
his
Brett
own
Love
show.
Comics,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
we read comics. No.
Oh
I'm
man.
back.
Oh, okay, well that was a 10-second return.
Jesus Christ.
But like part of me loves the insanity of the X-Men film franchise because in some ways like it has to be. Like the X-Men, I don't know, I would say that like the Avengers franchise in the comics is much more straightforward, but I'm like they got fucking Kang, so like they got their own problems. Like, I don't fucking
you
know
don't
what's
think
going on over there.
that Kang has got to be the one they're queuing up for like the next phases 4 through 6? Who
Who
else could it be? Who else could follow Thanos?
I think Fox owns his rights.
Oh,
I've read-
because
why
he's
would
technically a
Fox own-
Fantastic Four character.
yeah.
Because
Oh, is
technically
he?
he is Reed Richards' dad.
Yeah, or something
Oh,
crazy.
really?
Like, it's like,
Technically.
or is great. There's a lot of these
God
characters
damn
that
it,
exist in the
Marvel.
gray area. I know that there was something like I can't remember which side he falls on. I know I had to write a bunch of articles about this for work at some point where like James Gunn wanted to use Kang but like couldn't or something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Something like that. Or it might be the reverse where Fox wanted to use him in Fantastic Four. Anyway, there's a bunch of those gray area characters with Quicksilver being one.
Yeah.
Okay, so why aren't the X-Men movies as good as the Marvel movies that
I
we've
think
been talking about?
Well, I mean, I do think they don't suffer from. In some ways, it's like, don't disrespect your elders, man. I think the first 2 X-Men movies are why the Marvel movies are so good. Like, without those first 2 X-Men movies, you don't get anything else that has
Right.
come. Because they are the building blocks. I mean, they're the justification of like, hey, you can do this. Like,
Yeah.
the X-Men franchise kind of paid oh man, this is where it gets also the mute metaphor.
Throw it down, buddy.
Okay. The reason the X-Men are in this whole rut to begin with is because the X-Men were the only thing keeping Marvel afloat in the 90s when
Yeah.
Marvel was like bankrupt. The X-Men were the only thing that were selling. So their rights got sold off first because Marvel needed to make that cash.
I do remember because I grew up on the X-Men 90s cartoon. I grew up loving it.
so
The
good.
very first comic book I bought without knowing anything was House of M #1.
Oh, yeah.
Because I saw so many X-Men
Oh, yeah.
characters on the cover of it that I knew. And it looked like a cool cover. And as
saw it
far
read it.
as Marvel crossovers go, House of M was pretty good.
Fine.
Like,
Yeah, I just reread that recently. It wasn't too bad.
no.
But
If
like-
you're not familiar with the House of M storyline, it led to a whole bunch of shit in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
But
Still
basically,
living with.
That was their first crossover too in
Yeah,
like 6
after-
years.
yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, all of a sudden, everybody wakes up, and all the Marvel heroes wake up, and the world has changed. No one knows why, but everybody pretty much has their deepest, darkest desires that they've never had. Wolverine is pretty much Nick Fury, but he also has all of his memories back. Let's see. Peter Parker never lost Gwen Stacy.
Scott has a normal job.
Oh, yeah.
And
Cyclops
lives in the
is a
suburbs.
normal dude.
Yeah.
All because of the Scarlet Witch.
All because
Yeah.
Scarlet Witch. And then it ends with mutants
more mutants.
just being decimated.
Yes.
And I'll say that like in the same way that the X-Men franchise kept Marvel afloat and they had their rights sold off, and that has led to them being banished because they saved Marvel 20 years ago, they now like can't be a part of the Marvel Studios because Marvel needed to make money in the 90s and sold them off because they were successful.
Yeah.
In that same way, you have like, so they got their rights sold off. So the X-Men were like the first out of the gate after Blade. We always want to make sure that like don't forget Blade.
Yeah.
You can forget Blade.
But like the X-Men movies were the first big known superhero franchise out of the gate after the Batman franchise fucking tanked the idea of superhero movies.
Yeah.
And so because of
Thanks,
that,
Clooney.
because
Bat nipples.
Fox for some reason didn't do First Class as a hard reboot, which I thought they were going to do and should have done, the franchise is still beholden to the fact that the movie franchise was, I don't know, like the pioneering. Like a lot of the foundational decisions they made with the X-Men movie universe were because like they could not do anymore in 2000 when that movie came out. Like they couldn't have them wear colorful costumes. They couldn't have them like be as freaky and crazy and silly as they should be. They had to go this like, well, it's super, we're starting a fucking concentration camp. Like you're going to believe this is a serious movie. And the franchise took a long time to finally like shake off the weight that it bears for starting this entire madness. And I think that Days of Future Past and Apocalypse are Fox finally being like, we can be a little weird. We can make Psylocke look exactly like she is in the comics with even more skin showing, impossibly.
Somehow.
Yeah,
They're like, she needs a boob window.
They made
So stupid.
they made Psylocke kind of work in the movies, and I did not think that was going to happen.
And that is why I'm so excited about where the franchise could go and is going, is because I think they are finally like moving on to the next phase of what it should be. And they are not, beholden to like.
So they're doing a redo. They're like,
Well, they've said like the next.
not just a reboot. They're saying like, okay, good practice run with Hugh Jackman and Famke.
Yeah.
Now we're really doing
Because, I mean,
it.
in theory,
Okay.
the rumors are the next X-Men team movie is going to be Dark Phoenix Saga, which I wrote a whole article about for CBR of like, yeah, they can do Dark Phoenix Saga because they didn't do it. Like, they never did it. The most important things about Dark Phoenix Saga to me that really make it stand out are like fucking outer space and it being a cosmic entity. Like, and Bryan Singer is
Scale.
They've said
Scale,
like we're
epic
gonna
scale.
go to space. Like Bryan Singer wants to
said
do.
it?
Yeah.
When Apocalypse came out, he was like, "Yeah, there's a couple of teases in this. Like, I'm a huge Star Trek nerd. I wouldn't mind doing that."
Yeah.
And so I mean, I think that if we get another Team X-Men movie, it's gonna be Imperial Guard, Starjammer, Shi'ar, which is like.
I will say, Guardian is one of my favorite underrated
love Guardian.
Marvel characters in the movie.
Purple character, blue mohawk, red cape.
So
Yeah,
great.
he's basically Superman if Superman was like
total dick.
a king. Also,
Yeah.
And just like
I love Gladiator. I
Full
love the
on
Imperial
yeah.
Guard.
Gladiator is great.
I love Cannonball beating Gladiator.
Yes.
When did Cannonball
Oh.
beat Gladiator?
Okay, X-Men number 341.
341, I believe is
341, I
correct.
think.
How did he?
Basically, Cannonball's whole power is he's not invulnerable while blasting.
Oh man, I haven't heard you say that in years. It
so,
feels so good.
so basically, like, Cannonball is out shopping for a Christmas gift for his like little sister on Christmas Eve, and Gladiator Cannonball doesn't know this, but Gladiator has been sent by the Shi'ar as an emissary to like be like, X-Men, we need help because the phalanx are fucking us up. So Gladiator like crashes into FAO Schwartz, and Cannonball's like, "Well, holy shit, I gotta stop this guy." And Cannonball like knows he's read the files because Cannonball's my second favorite X-Men. I fucking love him. He's also from Kentucky. So
You have a definite Southern
when
bias.
I talk about
Oh, yeah.
Gambit and Boom Boom, there's my four like this, like Virginia, Louisiana. So Cannonball's read the files. He knows that Gladiator's whole thing is as long as he's confident, he's powerful. Cannonball also knows that he has a blast field that can protect him from anything. So all he does is kind of goad Gladiator into punching him as hard as he can, knowing that he'll be protected. So Gladiator like hauls off and punches him. The entire place, like, it's like huge boom. And there's this awesome Joe Madureira panel of Cannonball in silhouette, like that the best you got or whatever. And in the second that Gladiator's like, what the fuck? He didn't like disintegrate. Cannonball just like pops him as hard as he can. And he takes him out. And it's so great. Because it's like the nerdy minutia of like, as long as he's confident and he's not, boom.
Yeah. It's all about knowing your opponent.
I love that though. I love the science of figuring out how the powers work. And it seems like the X-Men movies are kind of deficient in that. For some reason, like even in X2, which is arguably the best one, Mystique,
So dismissive with that. Though.
yes, because Mystique, her power is she can change form. She can alter her mass a bit.
Yeah.
Why can she basically jump onto walls and like stick to them and like take out a room full of 30 dudes who
I
all
guess
have
if we
guns?
say that Spider-Man can stick to walls because he has those like tiny little fibers in his fingers,
Yeah,
right?
he has tiny little things that
Mystique,
look like.
Mystique can also do that. Boom, she can shapeshift those.
Also
Yeah.
that slide she does out of the room, flicking off
but
everybody.
it's so great.
Oh,
No,
man.
it's not. It doesn't make sense. It
So
doesn't
it's
make
so
sense.
great. But it's so great for like oh man, especially that was 2003, so it's so goofy and great.
Yeah.
It takes me out of it. Okay, but going down the line, because we're talking about not just those movies. Now it's become a whole big thing. Now they've moved to TV
Kind
with
of.
Legion.
Kind of.
Yes.
Legion is definitely in that.
It's not. Well, it is. Well, we. First of all, the show is insane, so who knows what reality it takes place in?
Yeah,
but
so
also
we're definitely doing some Legion spoilers right now. So if you haven't seen Legion
we've
yet,
only seen the first step. Well, two of us have only seen
Yeah.
the first one.
We've
Yeah,
only
I have
seen
not
also,
seen it
like-
yet, but I'm okay with finding out what happens.
The
in this
producers and stuff have
conversation.
even like definitively said like, it doesn't take place in the movie universe, and it like
really?
doesn't. Yeah, I mean, it's
so he's
part of my.
probably not Professor X.
No, this is the thing that annoys me about a great show that I thought was directed spectacularly and was like puzzling and like weird.
For those of you that haven't seen Legion yet, it's
you're gonna
basically
try to explain it because
I can very easily explain it. It's if David Lynch and Tim Burton had their way with the X-Men.
yeah, something like. But then decided, but what if there were no actual X-Men in it?
Yeah.
That's because that
But
is the
we can
thing
still
that
say mutant.
this is what makes me angry about it. Is like you could also be like, House of Cards is a great X-Men show as long as you like named Frank Underwood's Robert Kelly.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Or even like you could say like Strange. If you slapped based on the stories by Chris Claremont and John Byrne on the end of Stranger Things, you could be like, yeah, I guess,
Yeah.
because they have as much in common with it as Legion does. Because like his name is David Haller and he's a mutant, but like he's probably not Professor X's son. He doesn't have the same powers.
Well, we're still figuring that out because
So far, he's
Legion's
just
powers
like a
in the
telekinetic.
comics are.
Telekinetic, pyrokinesis, and telepathy.
So
we
he's
haven't seen
basically
we've
like
seen one of his
Jean
personalities.
Grey,
Yeah.
but
There are
dialed up to 5.
There are no X-Men in it. Like, there's nothing at all connecting it. Like, it really feels like Noah Hawley had a dope idea, and they're like, if we say this is an X-Men show, it will get press, and it worked.
And also the thing that we've got to talk about.
Which is insane, and if they do it, I will take back everything
They
I
have
said.
to do it. They have been
This is
there's
big-
there's
well,
there's
maybe
this
is a theory. So
this is a theory,
it isn't
but
really a spoiler.
it's also like you have to. They keep talking about this demon with yellow eyes or
Yeah.
something, and you keep seeing little glimpses of him. And I'm going to look at Matt's face to see if he can guess who it is, because it's this yellow-skinned man with a big jowl, definitely overweight.
Wait, what? Are you serious?
They're
Wait,
doing
going
Mojo.
towards
They're doing Mojo, motherfucker.
Oh no!
Pause
Maybe.
this podcast, Google Mojo X-Men, and you tell
Wait,
me.
really?
Which is why-
It has to be
which is
Mojo.
why
There's
if
no
they-
one else it could be.
If they do Mojo, I will take back everything I've said, and it might become the most X-Men thing that's ever existed.
That is absolutely bonkers.
Yes.
That's that Mojo.
Who wants to explain Mojo for the listener?
Yeah. So Mojo is basically, he's a spineless one from another dimension that is named after him, the Mojoverse. He is basically,
If we haven't lost you yet,
honestly, he is our fucking president in X-Men form. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
I run the X-Men Tumblr, xmeninyourface.tumblr.com, and the hashtag I have for our fucking president is hashtag Orange Mojo. Because he is that exact same, like, media
Obsessed with reality
obsessed,
TV, yeah.
spineless, gross asshole, who he's exactly what this character is. Like, he's grotesquely overweight, big jowl, yellow skin, except in the comics he is spineless, so he's on a little spider carrier with
Like
all
a
these
little
little
metal
legs. He
spider
has a
thing,
giant
yeah.
metal scorpion tail, and his air quote hair is just cables that are plugged into the back of his head
And look kinda
They
like
flow out-
dreadlocks.
Yeah, they flow out of his head into
And his eyes are always pulled open
by like
Yeah,
Clockwork
by
Orange
Clockwork
things.
Orange, yeah.
And he runs the Mojoverse, which is a ratings dominated like TV place. His like biggest hit show is the X Babies. And also all of the contestants in his thing are like real people that he subjects to these horrors and they could die. And in Legion, the first episode, you find out like one of the big set pieces of the show is a fictitious set that has been constructed to trick David Haller into, or Daniel Haller. I can never remember. David Haller.
Well, he is David in the comics.
Yeah. Into spilling his guts. And I'm like, well, that Mojo obviously didn't do that, but it is a weird, like, thematic coincidence that a character known for creating TV sets and shit that mess with the perceptions in that same episode is a set that messes with perceptions, and also the whole show is about messing with perceptions.
That blows my mind too, because there was this summer Chip Zdarsky and Joe Quinones did a run on Howard the Duck, right? And it's amazing. Please go read it. It's very funny. But it ends, towards the end, he teams up with Leah Thompson. The actress Leah Thompson is in the book. And because she's having these weird visions of a talking duck, and they go to this sound stage, and it turns out that Mojo shows up because he has constructed a set, and he has a guy dressed as Howard the Duck, but from the George Lucas movie. Reenacting things from Howard the Duck in Marvel's life, and he's pissed off. But it's basically, that's what you're describing right now, is that he set all this stuff up to like broadcast out to the universe, and he kept fucking with his life just to get more things for more plot ideas for the show that he's making about Howard.
And that's about as convoluted as I consider the entire X-Men movie franchise. So we got to wind it down.
Yeah.
And we've done, like, honestly, convince me that it's not a C+ thing. Convince me that does scratch that itch. Convince me that it's good entertainment and not just I'll settle for this while I'm waiting for more Marvel shit to come out.
I think that the important, for me, an important thing is in fandom life, which is the thing that I do struggle with. That's why I can't read Grant Morrison's new X-Men run, is like separating fan expectation from like what you're bringing in from elsewhere and just looking at it straight on of like, this is what this is. And did I like that movie? And can I divorce, they didn't get Cyclops' power just right. And like the comic book guy, which I have my own problems with. And I have somehow, I don't know why, it might be because of the context with which I love the X-Men movies in, always been like, I love this because I love it. God, it's so good.
I would argue.
Yes, please, because I cannot divorce those things because I see Marvel making little tweaks like, oh, maybe Tony Stark is a little snarkier. Ooh, maybe Bruce Banner, instead of being a meek little guy, is played by this, why am I blanking on his name?
Mark
Ruffalo, this good-looking dude.
Mark Ruffalo.
But everything else is so beholden to the comics, and it's not like flicking you off for being a fan, like, haha, we got your money.
But did you like Legion?
I am giving Legion a couple more episodes. So far, there's no way they can keep up that fever dream of a style for an entire season. So I'm curious to see where it goes. But so far, I'm in.
I mean, I'm just because
But I want to hear what Matt was about to say.
Okay, so I think that I would argue that the X-Men franchise is the film franchise is B-level, brought down because of some subpar attempts within the overall tapestry. But the reason I think it is at least that high is that it still is engaging our interest that much. We still showed up for Deadpool because we're still invested in it. And it's not just that we're waiting for something else to come along. It's that I still think that the pieces that they do right are done well enough.
Oh, yeah.
That I think that, when we do sit down to kind of pull it apart, you start tugging on the string a little bit and the sweater starts to come unraveled. But I think the sweater that's left is still
dope sweater vest,
really, really dope ass sweater.
I will say, like,
it's not as dope as it could.
The reason that I can't even put it into words is like I wish I could empathically let you all feel the joy I felt at that post-credit scene of Days of Future Past when they turn around to like a blue guy building pyramids.
I was there for that.
I saw it in a press. I saw it in a press.
Oh, that's
screen
right.
The first time.
Yes.
It was like a month in advance, and I was in a room with journalists, and I was like, I started like screaming and clapping, and I was like, oh wait, professionals aren't supposed to have emotional reactions like this. There was just something about like when they don't adapt it 100% or even 50%. For some reason, in my brain, I'm like, I can't expect them to get everything right. But then when they do things like, I fucking love their Jean Grey. I love their, like, honestly, like their Magneto and Professor X are kind of more fascinating than anything in the comics. When they give me Apocalypse, which I still like, I am still like so happy that they gave me an Apocalypse that is purplish blue and actually has an A on his belt.
Wait, hold on. I missed the A. I was actually about to give credit that they didn't do the A.
No, if you look at it, it's a bunch of lines that give the same
but it's
style.
not a blatant
It's not a blatant A, but you look
So
and it's like,
points
it's
for
right there.
that.
And I'm like, and when they do things like that, and I'm like, that's all I fucking wanted. When they give me things like the mall scene, which you have to go to the fucking internet or my cut to watch, but still, like Jubilee, who's just wearing her fucking comic, like when her comic costume, there's just like this pure joy I have when they hit the right button. It is better than anything a Marvel movie can give me. And then the rest of the time, I'm like, yeah, that isn't really Quicksilver. That's definitely not Rogue. Oh my God, that's not Rogue.
Yeah, no, the cast.
But I'm still but
did
then
not
you
do
have
good
Iceman's
with Rogue.
coming out scene to his parents, and you're like, that is the X-Men right there.
Yeah.
And
I think that part of the reason too that with the X-Men franchise I am more forgiving as well is because it has been adapted. The characters and stories have been adapted in so many different ways, and we were discussing Wolverine and the X-Men earlier, X-Men Evolution,
Those
the
cartoons,
92
yeah.
X-Men, Pride of the X-Men with Australian
So great.
Wolverine.
So
Piece of fruit. That was from Spider-Man Amazing Friends. Anyways, because they've been adapted and changed so often, right? But I still care about these characters. It's the same way I keep coming back to like you look like the Spider-Man franchise.
Ugh.
You know? Well, I
Don't get me started.
Oh,
we literally
man.
do not have the time.
but I think that I think that the overall I'm okay with this version of the X-Men. So this is a version of the X-Men that we're watching here.
There's
ultimately.
definitely an aversion.
It's not it's not the and that's the other thing about the X-Men. The X-Men cross timelines all the time. Right? So I'm used to seeing the X-Men in different iterations, even within their own book. You have the
Age of
teenagers.
Apocalypse, you have Ultimate.
You have the teenagers right now running around in the same timeline as their adult counterparts.
I guess there's a thing of like, you wouldn't read the Ultimate X-Men and be mad that it wasn't Claremont and Byrne.
No.
Right.
All right.
Right?
Because we got to wrap this up.
Okay.
But I can go for
No.
another hour.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know
Because I
we
haven't even
all
gotten-
could. This could be the longest episode.
Into how amazing
we,
Yukio is. Go back and watch the fucking Wolverine and watch
Oh yeah.
All
choices-
the ones you're telling them to go back and rewatch.
the choices, but this is the one that people sleep on. The choices they make
Yeah.
in that movie is so great. And the fact that they give pass the Bechdel test, like,
Yes.
and it gives so many women. Viper is not good, but like Yukio and Mariko are so much better. It's great.
I did enjoy the Wolverine for the most part. All right. So if I started this as a 5, I keep feeling like they're maybe with this new crop of the younger X-Men, this new Scott, this new Jean Grey. And by the way, I did love seeing at the very end of Apocalypse, you see Cyclops in the blue
all in their Jim Lee
costume
costumes.
with the yellow across
Sophie
like one
Turner's
thing
wearing
for
her
no
Jim
reason.
Lee costume too. It's just so
But
it's so great.
I gotta say, I feel like a WWE fan. This is what this is all reminding me of.
Oh, am I?
Because you're
okay. Yeah, let's get
you're-
into that too.
because we did an episode of WWE
Yeah.
with Pat Bear and
and Zach Linder. Yeah.
and Zach Linder.
Yeah.
They said hating WWE is part of it, is part of being a WWE fan. I gotta say, if I started at a 5, I'm now a solid 7.
Wow.
But I'm still gonna watch all of them. I'm gonna sit there with my arms crossed, going like, "Well, I could have done this." I'm gonna complain about it at all, but I'll still be giving them money. So
Right.
I'm like, it's an abusive relationship, but I'm in it. Like I'm in it for the long haul. And then when they get little things right, like an entire Deadpool movie, I'll breathe for a moment because I know it'll be a good month, and
Yeah.
then something else will come out, and I'll just get hurt again. So I'm still in, but begrudgingly.
But that's what being an X-Men fan is.
I know now.
Yeah.
I know.
This is how I've been for the last. Maybe that's because I already had 7 or 8 years of this relationship when I saw that first movie, and so I was already like in it because the X-Men already betrayed me by that point once.
Yeah.
Here is how they could win me over completely. You do an X Factor Investigations TV show.
Oh yeah.
And you cast the absolute perfect person to play Jamie Madrox. His name is Aaron Gold. He's
Sounds
not
familiar.
as well known an actor, but
Oh,
give him time.
Aaron Goldballs. from the comic. Yeah. Aaron Goldballs.
Actually,
I know
if you
this guy.
put Goldballs in one of these movies,
So
I
great.
will love it. Google Goldballs.
Great character.
He's a real character. He's a real X-Man,
Fabio
and he's
Medina.
actually
Point.
kind of a badass now.
Yeah.
His power is that he makes gold balls, and they have their little signature
Poink.
sound. Poink.
My Jamie Madrox fan casting in the 90s was Jamie Kennedy. Scream
God,
era.
You're kind of
Scream
right.
era.
No,
You're kind of right.
Because when Scream came out was when Jamie Madrox was like my ultimate favorite character. I was like,
Yeah.
Jamie Kennedy be so good at it.
He's
He's gone off the rails since then.
You've just been X'd.
Yeah, that was. Oh, yeah.
Oh God, it works on so many
Oh,
levels.
so he's so great.
All right, guys. Do you have anything you'd like to plug?
If you can read my stuff at comicbookresources.com. I literally just most recently a X-Men Pride of the X-Men why 16 reasons why it didn't fail.
Yeah.
List is up if you want to read about that 1988 failed X-Men pilot.
Oh man, so
And in general, I have the vague X-Men paranoia beat and movie criticism beat. So even though I do agree with a lot of what Aaron has said, I still come away like giving all the movies like A's. Most of them.
Oh,
And on Twitter at Brett White. And yeah.
awesome. Yes, Matt.
You can find me on Twitter at the Matt Little, Instagram at Matt Little. I performing around New York. You can check my website. I'm Matt Little, and I'll plug Vanguard Index Funds. It's an index fund that you can invest in all of the top 500 corporations in America on the stock market. It's a great fund.
Your voice went up 5 octaves as you were doing it. Are you also still wrestling in UCBW?
I am. I'm still Wall Street. Wall Street's taking. I think Wall Street's taking a few months off, but he'll pop back up when you least expect it.
I bet.
Yeah.
Wall Street is also one of the most delightful heels I've seen
thank
at
you.
UCBW. Yeah. Okay.
I like coming out and yelling mean things.
Oh, it's just fun. It's just fun.
And you can also go on the internet and search for my wedding video where Matt married me.
Yeah, that's true.
He didn't marry. We're not married. He married me and my husband.
Yes.
So there you go.
Where can-
Oh,
how do people find that?
Hashtag Brett and Seb, spelled A-N-D 4E. So BRETTANDSEB, the number 4E. Brett and Seb forever.
Gotcha.
Also, Matt and Brett love comics.com. You can, if you wanted to read or listen to some more.
many other things. We did an X-Men Days of Future Past episode.
We did right
didn't
before
we?
the movie.
This was a
Yeah.
podcast that you guys were doing for years.
Yeah.
It's
And
been retired,
we also
but-
did a reaction
Yes.
episode
Oh,
afterwards,
yeah. We did
where
like
we
an
talked
immediate.
about our immediate, because we used to do a thing where we go see the movie at midnight and then go and do a podcast right afterwards.
Yes.
So
That's a good
You
idea.
can
We
listen to
gotta
that Days
do
of Future
that.
Past episode.
Maybe you know what? Maybe next X-Men movie that comes out, you guys wouldn't mind joining me for one of those.
That will be
Sounds awesome.
Awesome.
That'll
Yeah.
be Deadpool.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Me too.
I will
Deadpool
actually.
too.
We might have to save it for
No, that'll be
one that I wouldn't
Logan.
like.
That'll be Logan in March.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and they're gonna fuck up that storyline.
no,
By
they're
the way,
going
calling it right
to
now,
adapt
calling
it in their own way.
Calling it right now, there's at least 50% chance Professor X is just a hallucination.
Great.
But they are doing X-23,
Yeah,
who
which
is
is
one of my
great.
favorite X-Men characters of
and
all time.
I'm so excited for that.
They look like they're doing it right, but we've run out of time. I'm going to plug my stuff. The show I run with our illustrious co-producer, Grant Goldberg, You Are Not Alone, an uplifting show about depression, is back at the Magnet Theater Friday, February 24th at 7 p.m. Also, we just had Kyle Gordon from My Dark Little Corner on. He and I and several others will be doing an improv show called The Big Show, where all the characters are over the top and ridiculous, and there isn't a straight man in the bunch. That is at the Magnet Theater as well, at the Rundown on March 25th. I think at 6 p.m. Also, if you'd like to follow me, you can. Hey, it's Aaron Gold on Twitter and Instagram. Also, you can follow this podcast at Don't Mind Podcast. Got something you'd want to say to me in more than 140 characters? Do it at don'tmindpodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you leave a review on iTunes, I will read your name along with something that I like about you. So do that. Okay, so I'm not too happy. I've been changing the sign-off for this podcast since the new year started. I wasn't too happy with the one that we settled on last time. So for Don't Mind If I Don't, I'm Aaron Gold saying, mind, mind, mind. What do we have here? Oh, yeah, it's a mind. The new bit is all. Grant has hated the sign off, which was keep on minding. So every episode, I'm just coming up with the worst one I could possibly do. Yeah. So now I'm just burning it to the ground.
Oh, that's amazing.
Before you guys go, can I get a photo of
Yes,
both of us?
definitely.
Great. Eric, would you mind taking a photo of us?